So I was just teaching a shooting class, and right towards the end, like one of the ladies that I was shooting with, she's been happy this entire time, and then she kind of turned around and she was really upset. And I said, "Is everything okay?" And she said, "I just got a text message from my daughter that her, my sister-in-law is in the hospital, and she's doesn't have a pulse, whatever." And she said, "My daughter just said, I'm just extremely stressed." So I could see the anxiety and the stress, the fear that was on this woman. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, "Pray with her," right? Which is, again, I'm choosing radical obedience, but sometimes it's just awkward. I mean, I've got all these students here, but I knew I just had to obey. I just had to listen. So as we're wrapping everything up, I said, "Ma'am, can I pray with you?" And then she ignored me. She actually started talking to somebody else and just ignored it. And I was like, okay, I looked her in the eyes. She looked at me. She heard what I said, but she just doesn't want to pray, right? So I let the group kind of finish our final little conversation saying goodbye. And then I looked at her again and said, "Can I pray with you?" And then she said, "Yes, that would be nice." And then she turned to somebody else and started talking. It was so funny because she was just kind of resisting it. And then the one other lady who's a believer looked at me and she kind of like gave me the wink. And I said, "Ma'am," I got her attention again. And I said, "Can I pray with you right now?" And then she goes, "Oh, so now she's kind of on the spot." And she could say no, but you got to give me an answer, right? Like tell me yes, tell me no. But I just want to know what you kind of think, right? So then, one of the other guys, like we stuck out our hands, and then this one young guy, I looked at him, I said, "Do you want to pray with us too?" And he said, "I don't know how." And I said, "It's super easy, man." I said, "Just hold my hand and let's just go through this." So we kind of prayed and everything was done. And then I looked at the young guy who said he doesn't know how to pray. And I said, "It's pretty simple, right?" Like I said, it's literally just a conversation between you and God. This doesn't have to be a ritual. This isn't this big thing. It's just the way that you would talk to your father, the way you would talk to your best friend. That's how we're talking to God. That's as simple as prayer is. It doesn't have to be this big complicated thing. It's a conversation.